Hello, my name is Jasmine, and I'm here with Linda LeGarde Grover, and she is a Bois Forte member, an author, and a professor at UMD, and she's here to speak with us about her current books and her books that are available at many local bookstores within Duluth and in Minnesota. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Jasmine. It's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you. Can you tell us a little about yourself?
Well, I was born in Duluth here, and so I've lived here for all my life pretty much. I lived up on the range for a while, and I've been a professor at UMD for a while, but I've also been the Indian Education Director in Duluth schools, and I worked in Indian education up in Hibbing, Minnesota. I'm a Bois Forte enrollee, and so I've done a few things up at the Heritage Center up there, and I've done some things with ACO, which has been just an honor really, and I've enjoyed it so much.
Oh, we loved your book events at ACO. Those were so fun. Currently, with us being home a little more, are you working on any writing projects right now? Or are you writing currently?
Yeah, I am. I'm working on a book of uh, um, really kind of miscellaneous essays and things like that. So there are essays and short stories, and I'm kind of centering it around the geography of Duluth. I had an earlier book of short essays about Duluth. Onagamacing is Seasons of an Ojibwe Year. Here's my book, is what it's called. And Onagamacing is one of the Ojibwe words for the Duluth area, and it uh, it refers to the area, well, the Park Point Peninsula there, because in the old days, before there was a bridge and stuff like that, when people were traveling, they had to portage. You travel on water as much as you can because it's faster and easier. And when they got to what is the Park Point Peninsula, to get to the river and the bay, it was a very easy short portage there. It's only a block or two long, and so this area was called Onagamacing, the place of the small portage. And so the stuff I'm working on now refers more to the rock and hill terrain of Duluth, and it's stories and essays about this region. I'm working on some historical things, and also about a relationship between being a tribal person, or an indigenous person, and the relationship to the land here. And so it is certainly a historical and a religious, a spiritual relationship. But another thing, though, is the actual legal treaty allotment relationships to the land. So there's a lot of aspects to it. And that's what I'm working on right now. I hope to be done within the next month with the manuscript.
Oh, wow, that sounds amazing. I would love to read that. Just because I know, like, I live on the Wisconsin side, and from my understanding, didn't the 2 points touch at one time, and then the canal was broken apart for our way of industry during the Industrial Revolution, and that the Wisconsin Point is just sacred land, and then there's the beautiful memorial out there that I
Mhm.
visit frequently. I just treat that land like it's sacred. I go there, I clean the beach, I walk through the forest, and that's just great to hear that you're working on some of that historical stuff and that you've written about some of that historical stuff already.
Mhm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it is. It's our story here goes back a really, really, really long way. And and there's movement on the land, sometimes voluntarily, and often involuntary movement, and removals and relocations and things. And yet at the same time, around here we have the 1854 treaty, and the treaty still stands. Certainly every treaty that was ever drawn up was broken, but the fact that it was broken does not mean that it doesn't still exist.
Right. exactly. Well, thanks for speaking about what you're currently working on. I was wondering if we could talk about one of your books that you had written, and you were explaining to me that it's in paperback currently. Can you explain a little more about that? In the Night of
Yes, yeah, happy to. Yeah, here's the paperback.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so it just came out in paperback, which is priced lower than a hardcover, and so I'm just really pleased. So the hardcover came out in excuse me, April of 2019, and then the paperback came out just in the last couple of weeks. And so I actually got a box of them just a few days ago, and it looks pretty good in paperback. And I'm it makes it more accessible, I think. Also, it's easier to carry around, and it's something that book clubs would be interested in looking at. So I've this is the third of what is so far a trilogy of books about Native families, really focusing on women's stories. I mean, because I'm a woman, as they say, write what you know, right? And I know very little about men. No. So
yeah.
anyway, so I have 3 books, and they're the Indigenous First has had all 3 of them in there. So I've got The Dance Boots is the first one, which focuses on a fictional, though of course this is more real than nonfiction, a fictional boarding school and fictional families from a reservation and town in northern Minnesota, and the effects of that boarding school education on those families over a century. Then my next one, The Road Back to Sweetgrass, is more, it's the same region and the same large extended family, but there are other people in here too. And this focuses more on the termination policies, the federal termination policies of like the 1950s through the 1980s. And, it wasn't, termination wasn't officially eliminated until 1988. So that's a long time to have the official federal policy towards Indians being called termination. I mean, it's a terrible name. And it was designed to terminate Indian tribes and their legal status, and then of course the status then of all Native people. So it was a pretty sweeping program that affected, well, everybody. And so that book focuses more on the stories of women who were coming of age and growing into middle age over between like probably the late 60s through the late 80s, and takes it up to now. And so in the Night of Memory then, and here it is, this too is about people in that extended family and community in northeastern Minnesota. And the center of this is the disappearance of a young Native mother in the late 1970s. And what I like to try to communicate is that the effects of events and policies, and even one person missing affects all of us and goes far beyond just the woman and her little children that she left behind and her family and community. But also that there were many events that we can see leading up to something horrific like this happening, and that in history it's the identity of Native people and the place of Native people on the earth, and in tangible and spiritual ways, and how things like land movement and policies, education policies, boarding school policies, and termination policies, how these actually led up to that second when all of a sudden she's gone. And so her children then in this book go into foster care, and they have several different foster placements, and then eventually the fictional tribe invokes the Indian Child Welfare Act, and the children are returned to relatives and placed there. And then, of course, there is an adjustment to a world that they had been removed from during their formative years. And so how do you go on after something so devastating and something that goes just to the basic part of who you are as a human being? You know, how do you reconcile yourself and go on? And is there a happily ever after? And you know, we know actually there aren't a whole lot of happily ever afters, but there is great joy and happiness in understanding where one's place in the world and where it is. So the girls actually, it's pretty much chronological with some backstory stuff with their family, but eventually the girls become adults, and you know, and this is their story.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me. That was so amazing just to listen to you talk about your own books and really understand it from the author's perspective. I was wondering if you could read a short segment from In the Night of Memory.
I would love to. Okay, so I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs. These are from the first chapter. So actually it starts out that our mother, Loretta, gave us the most beautiful names she could think of. She gave us a memory, one I have told to Rainey so many times that to her it has become real, though I wonder if it ever happened at all and was only one of my dreams. And when Rainey was 4 and I was going on 3, our mother gave us to the St. Louis County foster care system. Rainfall Dawn and Azure Sky are our real names, the ones Loretta wrote down for our birth certificates, though she called us Rainy and Azure most of the time. I'm going to skip 2. We haven't seen or heard from her since the day we went to the county, I think, though I'm not sure. Although Rainey and I have forgotten Loretta's face, Rain occasionally thinks she sees our mother in the gracefully bending woman at the butcher counter, whose long hair sweeps to the side as she looks at a tray of pork chops. She might see her in a traditional dancer wearing a dark blue calico dress at the Mozhay Point Spring Powwow, who, while turning to face the flags during Grand Entry, is in fact our Aunt Margie, or in the bundled up homeless woman picking aluminum cans from the trash barrel at the bus hub in downtown Duluth. I have forgotten our mother's voice, yet I still hear her husky whisper from that night she woke us to see the northern lights and watch her dance. And it is this memory that I choose for us to keep, whether it was just a dream or really happened.
Wow, that was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with me today.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that Indigenous First Arts and Gift Shop, we hold all your books for sale. Currently we're closed because of the COVID-19 cases rising. But we are online and we're at indigenousfirst.org. So if anybody would like to purchase some of Linda's books online, we're at indigenousfirst.org. Also, Linda, what are some other bookstores that carry your work?
The bookstore at Fitger's does, and Zenith Bookstore in West Duluth, and Barnes and Noble does too. And they can be ordered online, and you know, the various places people go. I mean, directly from the publisher too. And so yeah, they're accessible. And I have to say, I appreciate Indigenous First so much for carrying my work, but also so many other people's work, writers and artists and people who make all kinds of things that are, you know, really they're at the heart of our community and at the heart of our very being as Native people. So Miigwech, thank you very much for doing that, for all your work.
Yes, thank you. Do you also are there any bookstores in the cities that carry your books?
Oh yes, Birch Bark Books does, and I think Magers and Quinn does, and then in Cambridge, oh I forgot their name. There's an independent bookstore in Cambridge, so they are. The independent bookstores are the ones who really help so much with so many Indigenous authors, because many of us, our work is not really widely known. And so who are the people who will really help us and offer it? Often the very large book corporations, just they don't have room, or they're looking for something that might appeal to a what they consider to be a broader buying audience. But certainly our stuff does get out there, and we and I can speak on behalf of all Native authors. We really appreciate the Native stores and the independent stores that carry our stuff.
And if anybody had any questions about wholesale buying, was there an email that they could email you at, or?
For wholesale buying, contact the University of Minnesota Press.
Okay.
That's who carries, three of my books, and I'd be, you can contact me through the University of Minnesota Duluth. Contact me through there too if you have questions about anything to do with my work. And I'm happy to come to like book groups and organizations like that. I've done that quite a bit to talk about the background of these stories too.
Well, thank you, Linda. This was so interesting. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You do the same. Giga Wabamin.
Giga Wabamin.